Good morning. Thank you so much for being here and coming out. You know, all over this country, people are frustrated. They're frustrated because they see crime, they see injustice, they also see inequality. And you know their wants are simple. They just want to be safe. They want to be able to live their lives in harmony and peace. And really what they want a life better for their kids than what they experienced. But you know it's not easy. They are really looking at the scales of justice being balanced. And balancing that scale means equal justice for all. As your Dallas County District Attorney, my job and my only job is to make certain that there is equal justice for everybody in this county, regardless of what they look like, black, white, purple, green, rich, poor, young, old. That's my job. Republican, Democrat, independent, no dependent, that's my job. And when you look at what I've done, we have aggressively prosecuted violent defenders. We have also protected our community. We've been out there. We have advocated to make certain that we give second chances when it's appropriate. In less than 2 years, we have started 16 satellite offices where victims who have suffered from family violence can go and start the process for a protective order. We also participate in over 15 diversion programs. These are programs that help give second chances. 2 of those programs are DA-driven, our mental health, and also our AIM program for young people. And we just started our homeless diversion program, which helped homeless people. We saw that as a need. Also, what we've done is expanded the Conviction Integrity Unit. That unit is responsible for making certain that innocent people are free. We don't want them to spend not 1 second in jail. That's why I expanded the unit. Also, what we have done, me, coming into that office, have elevated the morale. When I got there, the morale was at an all-time low. And I went in there, and I only knew about a couple of the prosecutors. We only allowed 3 not to come back. Over 470 people didn't know me, but for about 2 or 3. And because of leadership, correction, and because of what I did, the morale in that office has increased. We've stabilized. We're out in the community because the community matters to us. That's why I have a community advisory board, a youth advisory board, a faith interfaith advisory board. We've done expunction, something that's never happened in Dallas County. 2 expunction, 2017, 2018. I'm an advocate for justice. Thank you so much for coming to hear us.
Thank you. John?
Also, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Great. I don't know if this is intentional, but somebody has left the phone up here. It's intentional? Okay, sorry. Okay, just want to make sure because I'm good to walk off and leave one myself. So, good morning. I'm John Creuzot. As indicated, I'm a graduate of North Texas State, which is now known as University of North Texas. But anyway, in 1982, I was employed by the District Attorney's Office, and I worked there from 82 to 89. I was in private practice from 89 to 91, and in 91, Governor Ann Richards appointed me to fill an unexpired term as a state district judge. And I did that until the end of 2012 when I retired, and I've been in private practice practicing criminal law since that time. But I want to talk to you about crime reduction, real crime reduction, verified crime reduction. I want to talk to you about saving your tax dollars, and I want to talk to you about innovation and a way to go forward and what the real issues are today in criminal justice. Okay? Back in 1998, we were both criminal district judges in 1998. All right? I started a program called Divert Court. It stands for Dallas Initiative for Expedited Rehabilitation and Treatment. 12 to 18-month program. Graduate, case dismissed, case expunged. It was the first one in the state of Texas. It caused the state of Texas to now have over 300 problem solving or similar type courts. We did a study, 68% reduction in recidivism, which means rearrest, which means a lower crime rate, demonstrably. You talk about your tax dollars being saved. For every dollar spent, $9.34 in avoided criminal justice cost. We started a reentry program for those who cycle in and out of the system. And we found that when we studied that, we had a 31% reduction in rearrest and a 67% reduction in probation revocations. We didn't have the grant money to do the cost-benefit analysis, but obviously we're saving you your tax dollars. In 2005, the legislature understood that in addition to 150,000 prison beds, we needed 17,000 more. The question became from the governor on down, what are we going to do about that? Well, we knew what to do about it. Adopt what was going on in Dallas, Texas from John Creuzot's programs. That became the philosophical underpinning of the change in laws. And instead of building 17,000 prison beds at costs of billions of dollars, we have now closed 8 prisons. So we've gone from 150,000 prisoners down to 141,000. So if you care about crime reduction, and if you care about lowering your taxes, I have that experience. It's verified. It's been adopted by your governor and the legislature. And thank you. My time is up.
Thank you both for that introduction. So the first question will go to you, Mr. Creuzot.
Okay.
The question has to do with domestic violence. As you may be aware, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
And I'd like to know what you plan to do to help us curb this really large problem that we have here in Dallas County.
Well, domestic violence, unfortunately, starts at home, and it doesn't, it winds itself into the criminal justice system. We need to do a better job of our police agencies, number one, addressing it, and doing everything they can to get the victims of domestic violence processed, get the cases processed, and get them filed. And then we need to vigorously prosecute those cases where necessary. Unfortunately, in domestic violence, there's often a lot of confusion on both parties' parts as to how to proceed. I know that as a prosecutor and as a judge, I've had situations where cases are filed, but then the complaining witness refuses to cooperate or participate and show up. And that becomes a big problem. But we need to have training to motivate individuals, and we have to need safe havens for them to feel that it's a safe place to go, that they can't be tracked down, and that if they wind up at the courthouse, they're in a safe environment, and that their case will be prosecuted, and there will be an outcome that is just and satisfiable to them and to the community. But like I said, those are difficult cases. Their emotions are sometimes very raw at the moment, and 2 days later they have dissipated. And so it's very difficult, even with my own clients in cases, and as a judge, trying to get those cases from where they're indicted, get them to a resolution can be difficult. But we have the skills and we have the willingness to follow through and to get through those cases and get them resolved as best we can. So we need to be respectful of victims of violence. We need to make certain that they can get to the Victims Fund and get the services that they need. We need to make certain that they're in safe places while the cases are going on, if that's necessary.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson.
Obviously, that was one of my very first initiatives when I entered when I started at the DA's office back January 2017 as your Dallas County District Attorney's office. Before I even took my oath, one of my focus was, what do we do for victims of family violence? And the answer I came up with was to start my satellite offices. That was the main focus of the satellite office. It's for victims of family violence can come there, start the process for a protective order. Because what we found is that women, when they finally get out of that abusive relationship, and even men, when they finally get out, they go somewhere and they don't want to leave. If they can just go somewhere and they can hide away, it's so hard for them to come down to the Frank Crowder's Court building or the George Allen Court building to be able to get that protective orders. So I said to them, I'm going to make it my office accessible to you. So that's why we started the satellite offices. We have 16 now, 11 in Dallas. We also have one in Irving, Grand Prairie, Cedar Hill, Garland, Richardson. And I'm telling you, we have already serviced over 750 women and men in our satellite offices. And another thing we were doing is that we are partnering with the city of Dallas as it relates to issues that women are facing. Women are dying when there are guns in the house and there's family violence. There's more likely that that woman will die because there's a gun in the house. So that's why we are partnering with the city to be able to also look at legislation that's going to help save lives. And I'm committed to this issue. It was one of my #1 issues when I came into office, and I'm so proud of that. So many cities, we have 26 cities in the Dallas County, and so many of the other cities also want satellite offices, and we're planning to do it.
Thank you very much. Do you want a 30-second rebuttal, or don't have to, because we've got plenty of good questions too.
I mean, real quickly, the law has been on the books that anybody who's been found guilty of family violence should turn in their firearms. The problem is it's been little enforced. One of our judges, Rob Conyers, about a year or two ago decided to do something about it, to enforce it, and it's become more widespread in the courts in Dallas County. I've had clients that have been found to have committed family violence, and nobody did anything. They took their guns to relatives and did what they needed to do on their own. They had a good conscience and they did so. So we do have legislation for that. We do have laws in place. It's just a matter of whether we implement it. And the judges, and I think the district attorney's office now are on top of that.
Ms. Johnson, any other comments on DV?
The only other comment is that with Class C misdemeanors, we have not fixed it, because unless you register that online, a lot of people who have been convicted Class C family violence we won't know about it. So that's one of the reasons why we're working on legislation to be able to fix that particular area. It is an error.
Great, thank you very much. Another question I have is about our plea bargaining system that we use here in Dallas County. Would you suggest some changes to that, or do you think it's working well?
Well, one of the things you may not know, last year we disposed of over 80,000 cases. And a lot of people say, well, why do they plea bargain? When you think about it, it's no way that we would ever be able to try jury trials or even a trial before a judge. 80,000 cases. So plea bargain is vital in terms of just moving the system along. 10% of the cases we either have jury trials or trial before the court. And the key, I think, when you talk about plea bargaining, is making certain you got good prosecutors and you got defense lawyers who are really concerned about making certain that justice is done. That's why you hire good people and you train them, and that's exactly what we're doing at the DA's office. We almost have a weekly, if not every other week, we're training our prosecutors in one area or another as relates to criminal law and handling cases and doing anything relating to the DA's office. So, yes, we have to have plea bargain. 90% of the cases are plea bargain. But the key is making certain you have the people in the DA's office and you have the defense lawyer. Now, the district attorney's office can't impact which defense lawyers are going to get cases. But I think when we work together, the judges in the DA's office and the prosecutors and the lawyers working together, we'll all have the goal to make certain we have a fair system, a good system that's going to work for everybody involved.
Thank you. Mr. Creuzot?
I'm going to shorten my answer in the interest of time so we can get more questions in. Last night we were asked the same question, and we had a big table between us, and we were asked to write down what percentage of cases were plea bargains. And guess what we wrote down without knowing it? Both wrote down 90%. So we have a pretty good grip on that. The reality of it is that you couldn't try every case if you wanted to, because you couldn't build enough courthouses. Your tax dollars and tax receipts would go sky high. So I agree that it's necessary. We need to make certain that we're doing the right thing on the plea bargains, and I don't really have anything more to add to that in the interest of getting more questions in.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But I think you're actually up next, so
Okay.
Let's talk about victims' rights.
Yes.
And how should the district attorney make sure that victims are treated appropriately and that victims' rights are also considered?
Well, first of all, we have a Victims' Rights Act and we have a victims' rights fund that can be accessed sometimes, depending on the circumstances, for collateral services for a victim. Let me get this closer. For a victim of crime. So that is available through the law and through the legislature, and it's fairly well funded, number one. Number two, we have some crimes that are not victim crimes like drug crimes, but all the other crimes like burglary and robbery, sexual assault, murder. I think that and I keep dropping this, I'm sorry. I think that we should obviously follow our best practices, which is to contact the witnesses and inform them, keep them informed, which, by the way, they have not a constitutional, but an actual statutory right to be informed of the progress of the case. And so we need to make certain that we're honoring their rights and that we're giving true voice to them. That does not mean that if it's a probation case and we know that every time the case goes to trial, it'll be a probation case, that they get to make the call and say 50 years, because that would not be appropriate. So I think we need to keep up what we're doing, follow the law. This is going in and out, isn't it?
I think if you point it more straight at your, there you go.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I could tell that it was going out, so sorry about that, y'all. Anyway, that we follow what we have, and I think that we'll continue to do a good job, each and every prosecutor contacting the individual that deserves. I'm gonna have to turn it upside down. My ear or something, but anyway, make certain that we make the contact and keep them appropriately apprised of the case.
Thank you.
They said I kept it right there and it went out.
I don't know.
Might be it.
I support victims' rights. One of the things that I emphasize, and I encourage all of my prosecutors to make certain we make contact with our victims at the very beginning of the case. And even I, as your Dallas County District Attorney, have actually sat with my victims in cases. I remember one of my victims came in, and it is so touching when they come and they have been a victim of a crime. And I don't know how many people in here have been a victim of a crime. And it's so soothing to them when they know their DA, because remember, that's our responsibility. We represent the state of Texas, and the victim is one of the key witnesses in our case. And they are so pleased when they know that we care. And we don't want to let them just know that we care. We want to be able to show them that we care. And I think victims' rights is so critical. Yes, we have a victim right. I don't know many of you if you didn't know that or not. There's a constitutional right as a victim. Certain things that must be done. Certain things that you're entitled to. We also give them that whole list of things that they are entitled to. So victim rights, we care about them. We include them in our conversation. We include them and as we look at how we proceed with the case. And yes, what they say will matter to us. And we do take that under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I have a question from the audience regarding working with the police departments and community policing, which is obviously key that you'll work hand in hand with law enforcement, but does that not juxtapose a position when you have an officer that, for lack of a better word, goes off script, or we have a police brutality or officer involved shooting? How do you balance that?
I think it's very important that the DA's office and law enforcement work together. Understand, your district attorney is your chief law enforcement officer in the county. However, when you look at all the cases that we put before a jury or before the judge, a lot of times you're going to have a police officer that's involved. So one of the things I've done in terms of increasing and enhancing that relationship is my Blue on the Block, where I am, I think it was last year, we had over 800 people attending that particular community forum. Law enforcement and community trying to bring them together. So we have that aspect of it in terms of trying to enhance that relationship. But I have a public integrity unit, and that unit specializing and looking at investigating, prosecuting police-involved shooting. is an independent unit that goes out and investigates those cases. And the reason why we want to keep them separate is because those prosecutors never come in contact with officers in other cases, so they're not concerned about, hey, I need to have a good relationship with this officer and make sure that everything goes well. That's why we have that independent division. And as you all know, based on my record, we want to hold everybody accountable for their action. So I am not afraid to prosecute police officers who've done something bad, who's committed a crime. Remember, I support police, I love them, but I will not tolerate a bad officer. That's why we tried the Roy Oliver case, to make certain that justice is equal for everybody, and it doesn't matter who you are, police officer, civilian. We want to make certain that people know that we are here for everyone and not just one segment of our community. Thank you.
Mr. Creuzot?
Yeah. I think that the public integrity section does a very good job. The head of that, if he still is, Jason Hermes, am I correct?
He's no longer the head of that.
Okay, well anyway, when he was a young prosecutor who came up in my court and did a very good job. I watched him grow and evolve and develop as a young man and a young prosecutor, and he did a great job. But my perception of that unit is it does a great job. We do need to hold police accountable, okay? 99.9% of all police officers are great. They do a great job. They treat people with respect, especially now with body cameras, okay, and cameras on cars. The things that I used to hear about happening on the streets, you don't see and hear anymore. And some agencies train better than others, and so you see more respect given to people who are stopped by some agencies as opposed to others. But the most important thing is number one, if a police officer has done something to violate the law, they need to be prosecuted equally. I agree with that. But let me tell you what the most serious problem is, most common problem, is police officers who are not telling the truth in court and or hiding evidence. Okay, that happens. Those are not the flashy things that you see about, but those are the everyday realities of dealing with some police officers. And I've had that happen to me in my now 6 years of private practice. There's not really much I can do about it, except when Jason was there, I took the cases to him and we filed the complaints. But the sad thing about it was nothing was done to the officers. That's not to the DA's fault, by the way. That's to the police fault, okay? And had that in numerous jurisdictions, caught police officers admitting that they lied on probable cause affidavits, that they hid evidence. And I'm very aggressive about representing my clients. I'm not going to give up. And in fact, some of these officers had actually not told the truth to the assistant DAs. So there is a big problem out there beyond just police shootings and police conduct. And we need to stay on top of it and be vigorous in our responses. Thank you. My time is up.
Thank you very much.
And just quickly.
Yeah, we can have 30 seconds.
And to that end, we can't fire a police officer. That was interesting. A lot of people were calling me to fire Amber Geiger. Not totally out of my control. But what we can do with police officers, and when we find that there's been something in their background, we can put them on a no testify list. And we have a lot of police officers who's on that no testify list, so that we're saying we won't sponsor you. So that way, that police department's going to have to do something else with them because they can't come down and testify on a case for us.
Okay, great. You're welcome to. Okay.
No, that's accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Another question from the audience. As district attorney, do you anticipate trying any cases? And if so, what types of cases would you try? I think you're up.
Okay. The answer is yes. Obviously, very serious cases and cases that are kind of high profile, but not necessarily so. I think that we need to try some DWI cases. I think we need to try some robbery cases. And I think we need to show leadership. We need to show leadership to the lawyers, and we need to show leadership to the community. I would not limit it. And if I did try a case, I wouldn't call just one witness. I'd actually get involved in the actual details of the case and call a number of witnesses and act as a leader in the case and to the rest of the district attorney's office. So yes, I would try cases.
Thank you.
Yes, I will try cases, and I have tried cases. That's what I love about being your Dallas County District Attorney, because it's twofold. Not only am I your administrator, but I'm also a prosecutor. I participated in the Roy Oliver case, and that was a very long trial. It was about 2-3 weeks, and I took witnesses, innocent and guilt, and I also participated in the punishment argument. And if you remember, that case was a case, first time in the history in 45 years in Dallas County, we were able to get a conviction for murder on a police officer. The last time we got a conviction of a police officer in Dallas County was in 1973, when an officer had a kid in the back of the squad car playing Russian roulette. And on the second pull, he shot the kid in the head. He was found guilty of murder, got 5 years, only served 2 months. So our verdict has went out all over the country in the Roy Oliver case. People are rejoicing. They couldn't get it in California, couldn't get it in New York, could not get such a verdict in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they rejoiced with Dallas County that we were able to get a murder conviction from, against Roy Oliver. And I was so proud that I participated in that trial. I'm also planning to participate in the Santander's case, the police shooting case. I'll be in that case, and I have 2 other trials that I'm participating in. But you all know I'm running for office. So although I work about 10-12 hours and sleep about 4 hours, we'll be able to get more trials in a little later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a question about an issue that we've been seeing a little bit in the paper recently because of, I think, some judgments that have come down, and that's with regards to our bail system. And how do you see changes coming on that? What kind of reforms do we need? And how does the recent, I guess, court orders affect Dallas County?
One of the things a lot of people didn't know, Dallas County was already looking at what do we do about bail reform for about 1.5 years now, before the county was even sued. And keep in mind, the county, meaning our county courts, county commissioner's court, and our county judge, and our judges were sued in that case. And although me, your DA's office, before the suit even came down, I had my staff to talk to our presiding judges of misdemeanor and felony and say, what can we do to try to make some changes? Because I support the fact that I don't want poor people to be in jail because they cannot afford a bond. And I have to take it a step further. I don't think judges feel that way. Our county commissioners don't feel that way. We have been working for a year now with a plan, and we have a great plan, even in spite of the lawsuit that has been filed. Even in spite of the fact they filed that suit against the commissioners and against the judges, we had already started working on how do we come up with a good assessment so we won't leave poor people in jail just because they cannot afford the bond. Now, I know my opponent talked last night about, well, you filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. There was a lot of things in the lawsuit that was not accurate, but we had already made agreement in terms of, judge, these are the things that we need to do based on the Fifth Circuit. So we're in line with exactly what the Fifth Circuit has dictated in Houston, and plus we're still working on making certain that we have a system in place so that we have a fair bond system. Thank you so much.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up here, but now since it's been brought up about this lawsuit, let's talk about this cooperation that we have, and I'm going to get to the last paragraph of the lawsuit. It's 28 pages, is the county's answer on behalf of Faith Johnson. So I don't need to go through 28 pages, but the title of it is Motion to Dismiss. And the last paragraph says, it doesn't sound like any compromise to me, and I'm sure it won't to you. Wherefore, premises considered, Dallas County prays that this court will grant this motion and dismiss plaintiff's claims against it with prejudice. With prejudice means don't bring it back again, see you later, goodbye. That plaintiffs take nothing from it by this suit, that prospective injunctive relief against it be denied in all respects, that it recover its costs and any other to relief to which it might be justly entitled. That doesn't seem like a compromise in working. Okay? The reality of it is the judge has issued an injunction and everybody is working together. I will say that. I will admit that. I'm not going to act like that's not happening. But the truth of the matter is that bail bond reform is a relatively new thing in the United States. And 3 years ago, I took 2 trips to New York, paid for by a foundation out of Houston, to work on it. And what I learned is that it's relatively new. There's very little research. But I took all of what I had and I sent it down to our commissioners. Now, unfortunately, they didn't do anything with it. When they got busy was when Houston got sued. And that lawsuit looked like a freight train coming up I-45 north at about 200 miles per hour. Okay, that's when everybody got busy. So we really are in the beginning stages of bail bond reform in the county. And I think we are all working together. The judge has issued his order. We don't have any choice to do that. And I think in the near future, I'm not exactly certain how long it will take, we will get a good risk assessment tool, and we'll be able to use it and have a fair assessment of who should be in jail and who should not be in jail.
So I'd like to take the 30-second follow-up with a follow-up question from us, which is, do you think it's bail should be set based on ability to pay or the seriousness of the offense?
I think that when we look at the assessment that we're coming up with, we have been working on this for over a year. And when I say we're talking about the county commissioners, the judges, the sheriff department. We've been coming up with a solution of this bail bond issue. It is an issue. Bail bond is unfair. Poor people shouldn't stay in jail just because they can't pay. So yes, you have to have those factors under consideration. That's why this assessment tool, believe it or not, we are getting ready to go to a 24-hour intake system. And we've already hired our first chief over the intake to be able to address this issue. So those factors will be taken under consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Creuzot.
So let's talk about these new modern assessment tools, okay? So the question was ability to pay versus violence. So let me give you an idea of what the new risk assessment tool might look like here in Dallas County. Mind you, there are many people across the United States developing risk assessment tools, and each jurisdiction is different, so they'll look different. But what we're talking about is whether or not someone's a high risk or low risk to appear back in court, whether they're a high risk or a low risk to commit a new crime or to commit a violent crime, and those things will be meshed together to come up with whether or not they should post a bond or not, and if so, how much should the bond be?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So have a question, a more general question about just the growth in Dallas County. What challenges, Dallas County is continuing to grow. We know that we expect Dallas-Fort Worth area to almost double in size within a generation. With that, of course, brings a lot of issues. What issues do you see in the future, and how do you see addressing those today so that we can actually have future good outcomes?
You know, I bet we're going to agree on this. It's the growth of our cities and the number of police officers that we have. Okay, we're short police officers. I have someone I practice law with in my office, and her husband is a homicide detective, and they're down to 8 detectives. Okay, they've been as far up as 22, and that's a funding issue. And when you have 8 detectives, there's no way you're going to cover all the murders and do a good job on all the investigations, and I know that. I've handled cases, murder cases, and I can tell you, they just they just flat don't have the time to cover all of the investigative needs to a case. And so our suburban growth, our city growth, and the ability of our police departments to keep up with that through proper police officer to population ratios is going to be one of the biggest challenges we have. One of the other challenges we have actually is how are we going to administer criminal justice? Are we going to create problems? Are we going to solve problems? One of the main parts of my platform that I've talked about is mass incarceration. We can solve some of those problems if we look at and take a serious look at who we're putting in jail and why, and whether they constitute a threat to this community on certain cases, whether we continue to prosecute them or not. And I have said consistently that I'm going to have a 90-day plan after I'm elected to address mass incarceration. Ms. Johnson got me pretty good last night. She said, well, you've been running for 2 years and you don't have a 90-day plan. That's pretty interesting. That was pretty good, I thought. But you know what? The only problem is I do have a 90-day plan, and it's on all my literature. Go pick it up, okay? Go to my website, go to my Facebook page. There are many things that I've written about that address mass incarceration. I got it down, okay? We're just gonna make it more formal and more expansive than what's on these little cards. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
I believe as we grow, remember now we have 26 cities in Dallas County, 42 agencies that bring complaints to the Dallas County District Attorney's Office that we have to prosecute. And when we look at people coming to this county, we got to make certain that they're able to get out there and work and help us pay taxes, they got housing. And one of the things I've done is start the Expunction Expo. And what's so critical about that is that people who have records, whether they have and there's certain things, because under the law, 2007, the law was passed that if anyone with a not guilty, no bill, dismissal, pardon, you can get your record expunged. That's so critical. Because when we are able to do that for people, then we can get them back in the workforce. We can get them where they can also apply for colleges, housing. So that's going to be critical as our population increase. You're going to have more and more people with those kinds of issues. Another thing that's so important is that as more people come, there's going to be more crime. And one of the main crimes that's increasing throughout, not just Dallas County, state of Texas, is human trafficking. And Dallas is one of the hubs for it. So we got to get ready for that in terms of what do we do? Aggressively prosecuting. Also working with different groups. We have a multi-agency group that's working with that issue. And that's going to be so critical as we go forward and as our population increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think we're about ready to wrap things up. I want to thank both candidates for being here. We're going to give each candidate a minute or so of closing. I would love to hear from each candidate what you feel differentiates you from the other, why you're a better candidate. Because I've been very impressed with both of you, and both of you sound like you have great ideas, and a lot of them, quite honestly, are very similar. So what are the differences? And I think, John, you're up first.
Well, I think the differences are quite stark, to be honest with you. I think that my focus on mass incarceration, and I think that my plans for being serious, taking a serious look at implicit bias in the system, who gets arrested, where they get arrested, and what they're charged with. We all know, let's be honest, it's not just a legal issue, it's a moral issue. And we know that people of color across this and all across every community across the United States are arrested and prosecuted at different rates, and we need to stop that. And I've been talking about that consistently, and it is a consistent part of my platform. It is morally wrong, and it's legally wrong, and it's not a Republican or Democratic issue. It is an issue that crosses across all the lines. That's why we were able to put together programs to try to address this that closed 8 prisons. And I'm the only one of the 2 of us that has ever started a program, implemented a program, and have it be successful and contribute to closing to 8 prisons. So I think the differences are stark in that sense. But we're both committed to doing a great job for you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
I think the main difference between my opponent and myself is that my opponent is talking about promises in terms of what he is planning to do. I have demonstrated what I can do and have done. My performance speaks for itself. I have opened satellite offices to try to help family violence victims. I have started a homeless diversion program. Homelessness is a key issue. I have prosecuted police officers who have killed an unarmed citizen in this county. I have done the first expunction expo, never done before in Dallas County, to help people clear their records. So I have performed, and not just promised, but I have performed, and that's the difference. seeking equal justice for everybody, regardless of what you look like, who you are, and what party affiliation you are connected to. That's the difference.
Well, thank you very much both for being here. It's been very